Check, check, check.
Nope. Okay.
I don't like that the camera is the opposite way what I'm used to. It's like when I think I'm gonna lean to the left, I'm going the other way.
Yeah.
Oh well. I thought I was gonna have the fuzzy background too, like I'm used to like when I want it on Zoom, but at least I have
Oh,
it's presentable, right?
yeah. Sorry. No.
It's fine. It's what we got.
Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna do a little research real quick. Okay. When you accepted my invitation, did you turn on echo cancellation?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like echoing through the broadcast though.
I don't know either.
Because
But
from
it will drive me insane if I can hear myself talking 1 second after I'm talking the entire time.
oh yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can turn off monitor mode.
I don't know what he's like crying for.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try.
Okay.
Anyway.
If I want, I don't necessarily want to screen share, but like the 3 links that I have from Asa, how do I do?
Okay. If you will email them to me quickly,
Okay.
then I can show them in the stream chat during the stream.
Sweet. Okay, I'll do that right now.
Okay. Holy crap, that was a lot. That was me typing vigorously. Right, is that the one compassionate candidate?
That's one. Should I just have done them all in one?
Yes, that would have been better.
Oh, fuck.
Less clicking for me, but all is well.
Okay.
No worries. Okay, did you send for me?
I think it's there.
Okay. Well, okay, I got them now.
Thank you.
Okay. This is driving me crazy. I have no idea how to fix it. Alright, ready? Here we go. We're going live. Ready? Steady.
Hello, everyone.
everybody! Thank you so much for joining me today. National Cannabis News here with Cassin. Today we have Brandy Zink. Thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us today. I'm very glad to be able to have got to meet you here in the last 5 years and so much work with you on everything to do with patients in the state of Michigan and across the country. And I cannot say how happy I am that you are here to talk to me about it today. I know that you know this is a passion for me. So
Thank you so much, Cass. I'm really glad to be here too.
all right, so audience, we are trying new audio features today. So if you're listening and you're like, wow, everything sounds strange, I want to know. So share this information with me in the chat if you are so inclined. Obviously, I'll be able to watch the video after and hear about things myself, but we have a new microphone. Is it better or worse? All right. So, Brandy, at the top of the hour, we always talk about cannabis busts. People who were recently incarcerated, arrested, or had their plants and cannabis seized by law enforcement around the United States. So if you have someone that you're thinking about that you want to share about, now would be the time. I'm going to talk about what happened in Oregon this week, where a group of growers who had been growing without a license for decades had all of their plants destroyed, their cannabis seized, their cash seized, and all were arrested and given felony charges for unlawful cultivation and possession of marijuana in Oregon. One of the states that has had a legal, medical, and now recreational program for longer than most states in the country, where people are still being imprisoned for this plant. And I found it to be really interesting that in this case, law enforcement had known about them for many years, but had decided this year to arrest them. This year to go in and destroy their plants. This year to make sure that all the medicine that they had available was burned and would not get to any patients or consumers in Oregon or anywhere else for that matter. And that they also decided to destroy their Sacramento plants, including all the mushrooms that they had in the facility. Now, I can occasionally think, well, why would you have all of these things? But then if you'd been doing it for decades and had been providing Sacramento services, I just, it's one of those things where enforcement has changed, yet again in our country, where people who have been doing these things for a long time. I am also getting that, Drake Detroit. We have a new microphone. Thank you for letting us know. We will work on it. Okay, there's got to be a way. All right, you go ahead and talk again, Brandy. Nope. Okay. Okay, wait. Now talk again. I thought so too. And I wish that the answer was, maybe a little bit more along the lines of, instead of going in and arresting people and destroying... Oh no. There we are. How's that? Okay. I wish that if we could somehow instead, just go in and ask people to, fill out the documentation to get a license. Exactly. Okay, yeah, so this is even better. The DEA was involved in this bust in a state that has licensed, legal medical and recreational sales. It was a 7-part law enforcement multi-year decision to decide to go in and do this. And the thing that I thought was craziest is we're not talking about thousands of plants here. Okay? Hundreds of plants. Less than 500 plants. We're not talking about hundreds of pounds. We're like 10 pounds was seized. Okay? We're talking family scale mountain growers who were producing enough probably for their small community are now going to be in prison for this plant. Now, of course, they could have maybe gotten a license in Oregon, but it's not easy to do. And there's plenty of people that haven't and have chosen not to for, one reason or another. It hurts my soul when these kinds of things happen. Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, it's, oh, so Drake can no longer hear you. Is that still the case, Drake? I've killed her? Hold on. I will turn her back on. How's this? You can hear me?
I said something
and
really
Randy?
brilliant. I said something really brilliant, and I think you all missed it.
Oh, it happens way too often. It's the craziest thing. Every other time I have a guest, the entire thing shits the bed. I'm so sorry, viewers.
Well, technology sometimes doesn't cooperate.
Technology sometimes doesn't call at all. It's like, get fucked.
Well, I do think it's terrible, but it's happened to a family farm, and there are corporations making billions of dollars, and to see that this small family farm has been destroyed is just egregious and terrible, and should not have happened. I can't help but wonder if there's some like local politics or state politics involved, like where there's a prosecutor up for re-election or something else bigger at play here.
Yeah, I think probably that is the case. And I think that even more than that, that the broader picture is that we're still in a prohibitionist state where only people who pay to play are allowed to participate, and even family farmers and local farmers and neighborhood producers who, in most cases, never even have an opportunity for licensure will continue to be treated like criminals when you can literally buy these products off Facebook now. Mm-hmm. And that's why at the top of every show we talk about cannabis busts in the country, because I don't want people to forget that people are still going to prison for this plant while you're buying your weed from, the corner store. And, you may be getting things from a licensed operation, but depending on the state that you live, that licensure may have been a lottery, may have been, like here in the state of Michigan, political bribery to get involved with the first, dozen licensees that were given licenses in the state of Michigan, may have been, corporate sponsorship from politicians, like places like Florida, where there's only, 7 licensees in the entire state. Millions of people are only be able to get their cannabis from a handful of places. Even though there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of local family farming neighborhood growers for generations, they're now being put out of business by these licensed operators. And not only that, but the licensed operators are no longer criminals. But the guy that's been doing it for generations, he needs to still go to prison. Right? Like, it's messed up and it's wrong. And we see it all the time. Earlier this week, California continuing to double down on enforcing against unlicensed operators. And they did. And including, here's the thing that drove me crazy, okay? So now they're going in and they're focused on civil asset forfeiture. So they went in over the course of the last 2 years and raided over 50 homes that were being used to grow cannabis in an unlicensed way, including the home of a police officer who had been growing hundreds of plants in a home that he owned, that he wasn't living in California, in the same neighborhood outside of Oakland, right? And you know what? They decided, we're not going to arrest anyone. So they went in, they took the plants, so they destroyed the plants, they seized the cash, they seized the, agricultural materials. All those things will go up for auction. Other growers will then purchase it, feed the enforcement machine, and then use it to grow other things. Where then someone else will come in and decide that they're gonna, initiate law enforcement encounter and arrest another person, or not even arrest anybody anymore. Over the last 2 years, this big series of raids in Oakland has only resulted in a handful of misdemeanors because it's more difficult to prosecute cannabis folks. But you can still take all their stuff. You can still take their home. You can still take their cash. You can still seize their bank account, right? And that is what we're seeing people do now. I was having a conversation, a forum conversation, okay? An internet troll conversation earlier today about people who want to see people lose their licenses, go to jail, etc. here in Michigan over perceived bad actors. Now, are these people really bad actors? Perhaps, okay? I'm not trying to say that they're not. But what I am saying, though, is when anybody says that it's okay to remove somebody's livelihood over a system that is built on prohibition and gatekeeping to make sure that only some people think are appropriate to be involved in this marketplace get to play, and only those people who have the means to do so, and the threshold is high, okay? Just last week I was talking to people about what does that threshold look like. Today, if you want to be a hemp farmer in the state of Michigan, it's going to cost you $1,250 plus a background check, plus at least $150 for at least one test of your crop. And that depends on how big your crop is. Okay? So it grounds down to, if you say you're going to grow 10,000 plants of hemp, pennies per plant. Okay? The same thing, if you try to do it in the licensed cannabis space, would cost you $120,000. They're both agricultural crops. They're both producing cannabinoids. They both produce medicine that can help people. One of them, maybe, some people can afford to do. Maybe many people can afford to do. The other is out of reach for most individuals. And until we fix that, people are going to continue to choose to participate with the plant because it's a generational, evolutionary plant that humans are attracted to and have been since the beginning of time. And it never worked before as a war on drugs to think that law enforcement was going to somehow stop people from participating with this evolutionary plant. And there's no reason to think that it's going to work now. The only way we get there is if we level the playing field for everyone. And anyone who wants to grow the plant can. Anybody who wants to sell the plant can. Right? Anybody who wants to trade the plant with others can. Right? And if you want to do it where it's huge and you have the money to make it huge, you do. And if you can only do it in your basement, you do. But you don't tell the person that can only afford to grow in their basement that they can't feed their family by selling to their neighbors. That's honestly, I think it's the only way we'll ever get through this war on drugs, which just keeps being capitalized when we continue to spend tax dollars stigmatizing the plant and arresting people for the plant. That's just me.
Well, I think there is a place for legacy market and for regulated market. And I agree with you that there are too many barriers to the marketplace for those people who want to be legitimate businesses, and we should remove those barriers. We're in Michigan. We're lucky that we have really great laws that we do have a right for personal grow, and we do have that barter, trade, share economy. But I think that we're unique in that fact that like the every other state has their own unique laws, and we have probably the most liberal. And I wish other states were able to enjoy the freedoms that we have. Certainly.
Yeah, I definitely agree that we should be able to do that.
Raids in Michigan in so long that we forget that other places are living in an entire prohibitionist state, that there is no access for patients, there's no adult use, and people are going to jail every day for this plant.
Hundreds of thousands of people, 134,000 people prosecuted for this plant just last year. We don't know what the numbers look like for this year yet. You know, we'll learn sometime soon, right? I mean, it's crazy. And thank you, Drake, for letting me know. I'm doing some crazy magic back here with the mics. I'm literally turning one mic on and another mic off every time I think Brandy is going to speak. But it's working now, and that is what's important. Magic fingers over here, guys. And sorry if I'm typing loudly. It is not intentional. I would love to talk about the kind of work you've done in the past with patients when law enforcement was still targeting them, and perhaps about how the CJS has not been put in place yet, and that is what's protecting patients. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Yes, the CJS amendment is part of like the omnibus budget that the government has to pass every session. And every session since 2014, we have been able to see that pass. And so what that means is that the funding from the DEA has been taken away for enforcement in states that have legal medical cannabis. So states that has a functioning medical cannabis program, which means that there's a registry for patients, and that they're making sure that there's no diversion going to other states. And states that follow these parameters, the DEA has stopped raiding medical cannabis facilities and growers. We've kind of, in states that have medical cannabis and the places that follow the rules, have enjoyed a relative period of calm and peace. Whereas in the past, before this was in place, raids are terrible. They're paramilitary like forces that come in, bust down the door in the middle of the night, guns, in your face, in your child's face. They shoot the dog. It's terribly traumatic. They seize everything of value. They destroy everything, like, tearing up dressers and bookshelves and, smashing TVs and, just completely destroying your home and, taking anything of value that they can and just leaving a wake of destruction behind and broken hearts and broken lives. And this still happens in places. But this it's so critical, the CJS amendment, which is passed by our Congress members. Americans for Safe Access has been, the voice on the Hill for patients, and we've been there successfully making sure that this amendment has been passed. But this year, some of the prohibitionists in Congress have found a larger voice, and they're blocking this amendment from happening. So all of this relative peace and calm that we have enjoyed for the past 10 years or so could go away. And we could see these raids again. We could see that dispensaries are shut down. We could see that the entire economy for patients, not economy, but access for patients is being denied. And it's really up to Congress to do this. And so the only way that Congress really does anything is that if they hear consistently and persistently from the constituents. So this is where the average person comes in, and we have to make sure that we're signing those petitions, writing letters, and making phone calls. So you can keep plugged into what's going on when there's an action. The Americans for Safe Access, our website is safeaccessnow.org. And you can go to safeaccessnow.org and click on the Take Action link. You can also sign up to join our email list. That way, when there is a particular action going on or we have different campaigns, you'll be able to plug in. And it only takes a couple seconds to sign that petition. we have a petition now on our website to ask Congress members to not forget about medical cannabis patients. And the Congress people are hearing a lot of buzz on the Hill from industry, from cannabis industry and businesses. And they're not hearing so much from patients right now. And so we need to get more active. I think that since medical use has been around for so long, and now we have adult use, that some people think, well, that problem has been solved. And it couldn't be any further from the truth. So making sure that medical patients are on the front line and in the forefront of congresspersons' minds. So I encourage you to please not forget our patients and sign up at safeaccessnow.org so you can be able to just take 2 minutes to put in your information, plug it in, and you sent that letter to your Congress member. And we are able to keep track of how many members are calling or writing their letters so that we know when we visit them later, when we have our lobby days or when we're in constant contact with our lawmakers, we know that we can say, well, there's 200 people from your district, that this is really important. So your voice really does matter. And we've made those changes. All of these changes that we've seen on the federal level are because of everyday patients who and their family members and people who care about this issue, who made that phone call or wrote that letter or visited their member.
So that's so true. And Randy, I just want you to know, I am turning you on and off. So when you're talking, I don't know, like give me a hand signal or something, and I'll make sure you're on. 'Cause, I don't want people to not hear you. I feel it's necessary to say, I've been having this fight since 1997, right? Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, trying to say, hey, these kind of things aren't okay. I had a family member that went to prison. I felt that I needed to be really active because of that. Fast forward 10, 12 years, my wife has multiple sclerosis. She needs access to cannabis. We become American medical refugees. We have to leave our home because we could try to get access to cannabis in a place that wasn't legal, but there wasn't enough, and it was always too expensive. So literally we had to pack up our whole family in our house, sell our house, move to a state that had a licensed legal program so that we could get her more consistent access, because if she didn't have that access, she wasn't going to be able to eat, she wasn't going to be able to walk, she wasn't going to be able to sleep. She was going to be so nauseated she was throwing up, 5-10 times a day, right? Can't use, control the spasms in her bladder or in her back. She's constantly getting, MS hugs, which is like a spasm that covers just your thorax and makes it hard for you to breathe, right? All of these things there were no pharmaceutical solutions for, right? Smoking a bowl was over, okay? And there are tens of millions of patients, just like my wife out there, where if we don't all actively say cannabis should be legal, it should be safe, everybody should have access, it should be affordable, right? We should be able to grow in our homes if we can't afford to buy it, right? If we're not saying those things to our congressmen, right, then the people who are saying we shouldn't have weed at all, they win, right? The people who are saying it matters where your cannabinoids come from, Drake Detroit is saying I'm a hemp producer and I'd like to be able to continue making cannabinoids from my hemp. It's legal now. I feel like I'm still dealing with a lot of the same problems as when it was the traditional market, because you are. Because state institutions are trying to tell you where your cannabinoids can come from or not, even though the plant has been a natural plant that was legal for centuries. Before anyone decided, we gotta make sure that these black and brown folks don't get to have access to native medicines and shut this thing down, right? Even when they had all the science that said it was safe, even when they had all the science that said that they weren't going to be able to actually win, right? They were so focused on continuing to bust people, continuing to fine people, continuing to add people to the prison industrial complex in our country so that they could have access to the slave labor that they had lost over a century before, right? It's ridiculous and still true. And they're still trying to do it today. And, I think this is a perfect time to segue into talking about what's going on the Hill, right? There are plenty of people who are being arrested because of the acts of the legislature, because of the acts of the judiciary, right? Because of the acts of the executive branch. Now we have, for the first time in the history of the United States, since Prohibition started, okay, so over 100 years, we now have two presidential candidates that I have no idea how it happened, have both decided to prioritize legalization at least at the state level. And in one case, with Vice President Harris saying, it should be at the federal level too, former President Trump is saying 100% it should be legal in Florida. This has never happened before. Does this give you hope for patients? Because for me, I hear it and I think, how much big money is getting ready to come in here and make it so I can't grow plants in my house? What do you think?
Okay, so I think that I have to make sure that my partisan colors don't show all the time. I feel that if we take a look at Vice President Harris and her record on things, we know that when she was a DA and Attorney General in the California, that many people went to jail for cannabis, and that she was not a supporter of the Prop 215 and the laws of California in early medical days. But I think that there has been an evolution in her viewpoint, and I feel that she has met with former incarcerated people and people who had federal possession charges that were pardoned by President Biden. And so I know that she has evolved on her position, and I do feel that people learn, people change, and people can be forgiven for their actions in the past. So I believe Vice President Harris when she says that she would like to see legalization. As vice president, she doesn't have much power, and so you're not going to hold her personally responsible for that. But I think that her position has helped President Biden perhaps evolve a little bit to look at the rescheduling issue. And I'm hopeful that if Vice President Harris becomes our president, that we will see some positive forward action on the federal level. My thoughts on Mr. Trump suddenly changing his flip-flopping position on this. He was for it before he was against it, and then he's for it again. I can't help but wonder about how much money, like you had said before, in the Florida campaign, looking at the Florida campaign, all of this money that's being put towards this monopoly situation for legalization. Like, Florida's ballot initiative is not really truly like the kind of freedom that we have in Michigan. It's going to be the monopoly that was the kind of law that's being proposed in Florida is the same law that was fought and lost in Ohio and other places, because it's a monopoly, and that that's not American. That's not even capitalism. So I really can't help but wonder, like, if Mr. Trump's position on this is solely because he sees his poll numbers would perhaps be increased if he embraces the Florida initiative. But I in no way think that he is embracing legalization, and I think that he is saying yes to this one particular ballot initiative, which is not a true legalization, or it's not freeing the weed. That's my point of view.
Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that. I've long wondered about things like this. Often when I see evolution, I like to call it out. So thank you for talking about that with Vice President Harris. Going from a person who maybe doesn't really understand what the plant is and how it impacts patients to, acknowledging the harms that have been caused and working to fix those. Sure, that can happen over 15, 20 years. Even myself, originally, I thought only medical, right? I didn't think recreational was necessary because it just, it was like, hey, like, do we really actually want people to just be as high as they want to be all the time? Because I don't get high all the time, right? Like, that's not me. That's not who I am. Like, when my doctor's like, hey, if you had a little bit of cannabis, it might make your surgery recovery better, I might consume cannabis, but otherwise I'm just kind of like, it's not my thing, right? Whereas for my wife, medical patient, she's probably stoned all day, every day, but that's a medical condition. right? It's a side effect of the medicine that's also making it so that she can breathe and sleep and walk and eat and use the restroom by herself most of the time, right? I mean, so I felt like there were pretty big differences, right? I was also always concerned that, would it be safe enough, right? But now I'm seeing, people enforcing against all kinds of things. People getting fined in Michigan for not submitting paperwork on time. People getting arrested in California for not having the right kind of license for the truck that they're driving, that they're a licensed transporter distributor coming from, right? Like they have very strange rules out in California, right? Or like in New York where they had, a really long period of time before the licenses could be given out. And then a bunch of people thought, okay, we're getting licenses who didn't really get licenses. And then they were unlicensed, but they already had the business and they were operating the business, and then and New York didn't do anything about these operating businesses for like 18 months, and then they came in and shut down all of them, arrested everyone, seized all the money, seized all the cannabis, right? Like these flip-flopping responses to the plant, not just in this case with former President Trump, right, but all over the place, right? I mean, it makes me think that how could he have a position that would be consistent when his own party isn't consistent, right? There's over a dozen Republican governors that have states where they've signed bills into law to allow some form of cannabis to be consumed by their constituents. And those same people don't agree that there should be federal legalization, even though they've already legalized it in their own state. We've got, a perfect example of that, right, is Florida, right, where at the Republican National Convention, Governor DeSantis was like, hey, I think that cannabis is terrible and everybody who uses cannabis should go to prison and we should get rid of it. And he literally is in a state that already has a licensed legal program. He hasn't done anything to undo the licensed legal program that already exists there, although he is trying to stop future additional legalization. Right? But he also then decided that all cannabinoids are created equal, therefore they should be allowed to come from the hemp industry, which, I mean, I agree with, but he hates marijuana, but not if it's a hemp plant, right? I mean, like, even within, the GOP, everybody, like, people will literally be telling you, hey, I literally am using this product as a medical patient, and then say, no one should be allowed to have cannabis. It's almost as though they don't realize that the medicine they're consuming is cannabis. And I sometimes think that that's intentional, right? Prohibitionists intentionally made the rules confusing. Prohibitionists intentionally made the Farm Bill super flexible, right, to sow division. Now, is that really true? Is it a conspiracy theory that I'm like making up that all cannabinoids aren't made equal? Like, I remember seeing the Farm Bill as it came out. I remember commenting on the DEA final rule and the USDA final rule and being like, hey guys, I think you're missing the point of the plant completely. If you're testing it in the, week 4 of flower, there's never going to be any THC there. And there still isn't. And so now we can have THCA flower all over the country, legally, accidentally legalizing cannabis, but not really. I mean, this is the kind of thing that they do to make things confusing, to allow perpetuation of the stigma, to create systems where there's licensure that's unattainable, like in Florida, right, where most people, right, including one of the people who was busted that I talked about on the show last week, right, where most people don't have access to get in the market. There was a couple that was doing a delivery service and food truck that sold cannabis products in a parking lot. Truck seized, cannabis seized, they were arrested, they're going to go to jail because they're in Florida. They were just doing what the average person will probably be able to do in California, right? If you're a small grower in California right now, you cannot sell to a consumer. You have to first sell to a distributor that then sells to a retail operator, okay? 3 layers to get to the consumer. But maybe soon, if AB 1111 passes, it's passed, it's on the governor's desk, he just has to sign it into law, then maybe Small growers would be able to, like, I don't know, go to a farmer's market and sell you some cannabis legally. They can't do that today. They can grow it, they can dry it, they can trim it, they can store it at their house. You can come by and smell it. But if they tried to give you some, they would lose their license and or their business and or their freedom, right? Because the rules have been created in such a convoluted fashion to continue to allow prohibition to exist, to continue to remove access. Now, I know that we're so much better than we were 20 years ago, and I'm not trying to say that the progress isn't great. Like, I never thought we would even be having these conversations live, okay? Ever in my life. Like, always, only in church parking lots at night when we've checked to make sure there are police nearby with people that we've known for too long, right? Like, this is a different conversation we're having today, and I am glad for it. I'm also concerned that while we're now having potentially funding-related political conversation at the national level, do we think that that will even solve the problem of access? Of making sure that there's a level playing field where any person who wants to grow the plant can grow the plant, who can sell the plant, who can share the plant. I worry that what we're going to end up with is Pennsylvania, is Florida, is Arkansas, okay, is New Mexico, right? Is the great state of Texas, where only cannabinoids that come from hemp plants are allowed. Doesn't matter how much THC there is, as long as it came from a hemp plant, which is literally the same plant, but only in Texas. We're gonna make it out like you can only get high, but it better be from a plant that somebody said was a fiber plant, even though it wasn't. I mean, only in Texas, right? So I'm kind of wondering how you feel about the rest of what's happening on Capitol Hill. I know that we are both planning to go to Cannabis Week here at the end of September when, you know, the appropriation bill with the CJS is going to be voted on, the Farm Bill is going to be voted on, you know, maybe the National Defense Bill is going to be voted on. There's a lot of stuff that happens at the end of September because it's the end of the fiscal year. And are there other things that you're worrying about that we haven't discussed that you would like to share with the audience?
Thank you, Cass. Yeah, I think that you're a visionary and you're ahead of our time, and that so many of the things that you point out and you think about are important, and I wish that we could get there. But I do see that the progress has happened, but it is baby steps and incremental steps. I've been working on Capitol Hill since 2000. So, you know, near a quarter century of my life. And, you know, I never thought we'd be at this conversation that we're having here today in so many ways. But yet it just seems so simple. Like it is a plant, and, you know, it has so many wonderful uses. And it's a multi-level conspiracy, if you will, of why we don't have full access to this plant. But I think that there is hope. We can see and make incremental change. I want to share, if you've got the link to the Compassionate Candidate. And this is one of ACE's campaigns that we have going on right now through the selection season. We want to make sure that medical cannabis is a topic that is brought up with candidates. The last few election cycles, medical cannabis is hardly ever brought up, if at all, in any of the debates or town halls or in any of the interviews or media that candidates are subject to. So we want to make sure that we're able to get these questions out there. And so the Compassionate Candidate, if you go to our safeaccessnow.org and the Take Action, you can find resources there that you can identify who your candidates are. And you'll be able to help us find events and you know, town halls and things. So there's a technique called bird dogging, and that is when you show up to these events, and if you show up with a with a group of folks perhaps that are all supportive of this issue, and you make sure that when you raise your hand and you get your question asked, that you're focused on medical cannabis and that you have a group of people there too, and so that way the candidates cannot escape the issue. And so I urge you to check out the Compassionate Candidate campaign and know that, like, truly cannabis issues are on every ballot. that our Congress people are the ones who are going to be making these decisions. And there's no better time than now to make it. There's so many other issues going on in the world that this is like easily forgotten. But if we take the moment that we have now and make this an issue. And then one of the other things is that, like, obviously is a perhaps a entire separate podcast, but the rescheduling issue that is up for debate right now. And the DA is going to have their hearing after the election, but before the new Congress is put in. So I think that this is an opportunity to take advantage of, between that time when the election and before the new Congress has been sworn in, is the lame duck session, where we can put pressure on our Congress people and ask them to remove cannabis from the schedule. Or I know that ACE is working on a proposal that I think it makes sense for medical cannabis. So to just take a couple steps back, when President Biden last year asked the Congress to look at rescheduling, and the Congressional Research Service came out with their analysis that offered 3 solutions. One would be the ideal in many ways, to remove cannabis from the drug schedule. And that would be ideal in many, many ways. Number 2 would be to deschedule it, which is what the discussion is now. And then the third option would be to create an entirely new schedule for medical cannabis. And that is something that Americans for Safe Access is taking a look at, as far as our proposal for a bill that we would like to see to be introduced to allow access for all 50 states. The Office of, so cannabis is regulated by multiple alphabet soup of federal agencies. So if we created a Schedule 6, and it would be overseen by the HHS, the Health and Human Services, and we would create under that an Office of Medical Cannabis Control. And our model bill would allow the states to continue their program. So the states would have their program if they have one. And then parallel to that would be the federal program, where cannabis could be prescribed. And so as a prescription, it would be dispensed by dispensaries that would receive the Schedule 6 designation. And so then your medical cannabis would be treated just like any other prescription. So you would not have any of the stigma attached to marijuana. You would be able to you keep your job, keep your housing. If you're a veteran, you'd be able to have access to it. If you're a federal employee, you'd have access to it. Your Second Amendment rights would not be at issue. CPS wouldn't be able to take your child from you. So you would be able to keep all of the protections, just as if you had a prescription for, albuterol or, your insulin or what have you. And also a benefit would be that insurance companies would be able to cover it as a cost of medicine. So on our website, safeaccessnow.org, we do have a ton of information. It might even be a little overwhelming, but we have some fact sheets and things. And we've been talking with our Congress members too. So we're encouraging you to talk to your Congress members about this. Because while ideally we would love to see cannabis removed from the schedule, we must be realistic about what is actually politically feasibly possible. And treating cannabis as medicine and integrating it into our American healthcare system is what patients need. The adult use is a separate issue. Like those folks can figure out, the best way for that. But as a medical patient who, wants to be able to use their medicine and not be ostracized or, kicked out of your pain program, or have your doctor deny you some other medical treatment. We need to have cannabis integrated into our American healthcare system. And truly that needs to happen on the federal level so that patients in every state have equal and fair, safe access.
I couldn't agree more. All patients need to have access to safe medicine. Yes, I want all people to have access to the plant regardless of their medical needs. Okay, I do. I certainly don't think that we should be telling people who are using the plant for religious and sacramental purposes that they shouldn't have access to the plant because they aren't medical patients, for instance. And I think everybody should be able to grow at home. I like to think of it as legalizing tomatoes, right? I know there used to be a big campaign for that, especially down in Arizona, where I was helping change laws for a couple of years. You know, when I look at it, I think to myself how far we have come by being patients and caregivers and interested parties who continue to show up even when the door gets slammed in our face, even when we get a nasty gram back from the letter that we wrote, even when they hang up the phone, right? That we keep showing up for ourselves and for others and for people who can't show up, for all those patients who can't talk about being a patient, right? For all those self-medicators out there that don't live in licensed legal states, right? Where, you know, if they were speaking up, they might end up in prison, right? Or like if they're in Texas or Louisiana in a prison work camp, executing slave labor in an agricultural sense, in some cases harvesting the plant that they were just arrested and put into prison for. Fucked up and still true. Fucked up and still true. You know? I'd like to talk about some positive things. I feel like I just got really sad because we talked about people being busted and then the political establishment just being broken and will there be time and how involved we need to be. But what about the cool shit? Okay? The cannabis science that's going on around there. All right, so guys, new study just came out, and I know we've all known this for a long time, but there are some strains that make you paranoid as fuck. And there are some strains that you're like, oh, it's so mellow. Okay? And now we have evidence that it's the strains that are higher in CBG and lower in THC that are giving you that mellow, right? That I'm picked up and moving forward, but I don't think that the world is coming to an end. That I'm not looking over my shoulder the entire time, right? And now we have a clinical trial that has proved that, right? The saying that CBG, whether it was smoked or orally consumed, reduced anxiety in most patients, even those patients that weren't having positive anxiety reducing effects from normal anti-anxiety pharmaceutical drugs, right? So I feel like this is groundbreaking. I feel like it's revolutionary. And, you know, I'm really, really glad that, you know, President Biden signed the Medical Marijuana Research Act into law, because otherwise some of these studies that have been happening in states wouldn't be happening at all, because the DEA had kind of held like a terror grip on research for so long. Even though we've already had 30,000 clinical trials in cannabis, we keep saying that we've never had enough. Probably we'll never have enough. We'll want to research this plant forever because it is that cool. That's the science that's kind of like jazzing me up this week. What kind of science have you heard about in the last week or so that you're excited to share with everybody?
That is really great news too, because I'm one of those people that I've been using for quite a while, last over 30 plus years, and I'm nobody likes to feel paranoid, and it's a horrible feeling. So I'm interested to find out what those varieties are that have the higher CBG, because it sounds like that would be ideal for me. So as far as the science side of things, like recently, I'm not quite sure, but was very recent is a patient guide that ASA has come up with, and it's fabulous. They released it last night, and so I'm really excited to share the ASA's patient guide. It's called "What's in Your Cannabis: Navigating Medical Cannabis," and it's a fantastic guide. It has all kinds of information about terpenes. It has helps you like learn how to read labels and to know what types of contaminants there are and how to avoid them. and I think it's like 36 pages or so. Maybe it's 26 pages, but you can download it. It's free, available on our website, safeaccessnow.org. And I learn something new about cannabis every day. And but I think that this is like the really greatest guide, especially for someone who is new to cannabis. But even if you're not, I think it's very, very helpful. I would love to see provisioning centers and dispensaries offer this guide as well, because it's really fantastic.
I agree. I got to see an advanced copy. I have put it in the chat for everybody to see if they want to click on it. Viewers, if you like what you're hearing, sharing the national cannabis news, talking about patients, talking about people who are being busted, changes in law enforcement, what's going on Capitol Hill, please throw me a follow. Go ahead and click that. It will get you there. 32 pages of science-based communication about what's in your cannabis, with references, I might add. So you don't have to just take Americans for Safe Access's word on it. You can go look at the research if you feel like it too. We've shared a couple of links to go over to the ASA website, safeaccessnow.org. It's great. I know I've been a member now for a while. I know Brandy's been a member for like decades because she's amazing. There's a lot to be said about the work that happens there and the kind of work that is making sure that all patients have access, right? Not just the patients in your neighborhood, not just the patients in your family, not just the patients in your state, but all over the country and all over the world as soon as the country is taken care of, right? And when we think about the fact that decriminalization has happened in every country in South America, what the fuck's going on in North America? When it's happened in almost every country in the European Union. What the fuck's going on in North America, right? Like, more than half of us haven't decided to get on board. Come on. Let's do this. Let's do this now. All right. So in the last segment we have here, guys, we've talked about the science. We've talked about the bus. We've talked about what's going on in Capitol here. Like now we're going to talk about what's going on here in Michigan. I would like to let everybody know, and I know Brandy will be joining me. So thank you, Brandy, for being willing to come out and say hello. The National Cannabis Industry Association is having a stakeholder summit here in Michigan, in Detroit, on September 12th. I will be on a panel with Director Hannah, and I get to ask good questions, and you get to ask good questions of the panel. Now might be the time to ask your questions in front of lots of licensed operators, maybe a forum that you wouldn't otherwise get to have. Now, also this coming week is the public meeting with the CRA. This is when Director Hannah gives us a report of the state for the quarter and how cannabis is doing, what the plans are moving forward, any big changes that are going to come forward. And then he gives you an opportunity to make a public statement or ask questions for as long as you want in 3-minute segments. But you can get up and ask as many times, right? And he'll just stay there and stay there and stay there and let you speak. So you can bring a written statement. You can come on Zoom. You can come in person over to the CRA headquarters off Grand Avenue. I will be there live and in person. I might even live stream if they let me. They might not. Last time I was there, it was a bit like a police state. They were like armed guards and shit, Who knew we needed armed guards at public meetings? I guess we need armed guards everywhere, right? Even in schools, right? So, it's just kind of a thing. But that is happening, and I think that you guys should plan to come. On the other side, guys, we have like 3 weeks until vape carts will have to be tested for MCT oil, okay? Because of that, next week, I'm going to a retail establishment to take a look at things, look at ingredients, look at potencies, look at labs that are doing the testing, ask the questions of, hey, was this product already tested for MCT oil? There are labs that can do it now. You can start thinking about buying the right kind of products and think about, hey, what's really in the vape that I am consuming, right? And it'll help, hopefully, be able to highlight this is what the label looks like, and these are your rights as a consumer through a retail establishment to ask for the testing data for the products that you're getting ready to consume. It's not just what's on the label. You can ask for the rest of the certificate of analysis as well, and they have to give it to you. Okay? They are legally obligated to make this available for you on your request, right? So we'll go through the process of making those asks. We'll be talking to a retail operator in Detroit. It'll be a good opportunity for other people to come down and join us. Moses Roses on Federal Street in Southwest Detroit. it's a good opportunity. Maybe Brandy will come visit. Who knows? Maybe Brandy doesn't live too far away. I feel like it's pretty close to Brandy's house, actually, and I could just like swing by and you could come and like hang out at the Moses Roses, powered by Calixium, with me and Latoya and a dozen of our friends. All not consuming cannabis, because you can't legally consume cannabis at a retail establishment, but talking about cannabis, okay? We could do that together. And I think also now might be a time to talk about one more big federal formal complaint that came out against exclusive brands just this week from the CRA. I feel like it's important to talk about it because, you know, like Drake Detroit was saying earlier, that, you know, he can legally have these cannabinoids, and still people are treating him like he's some kind of traditional market criminal, lots of hoops to jump through. I mean, to be a hemp grower in the state of Michigan, not only do you have to pay $1,000, but you also have to like pass a FBI background check to grow a fiber plant or a seed plant or a fuel plant. Right? Any kind of hemp. They're hemp agnostic. They don't care what you're using it for. They think that you're a drug trafficker. Like, it's confusing. We're seeing less people wanting to do this in Michigan, while states that are surrounding us, including Indiana, have hugely robust programs where people don't have to pay thousands of dollars just to play. The second part of that is when you start talking about the kinds of things that were in this most recent formal complaint, where it really, on the surface, looks like bad documentation practices, but could it be something more sinister, right? And the real question is, would every business look like bad documentation practices? At least most, perhaps I could say, if they weren't in the cannabis industry. But only because companies are in the cannabis industry are they given the level of scrutiny where someone is literally going to say, why is your paperwork shitty? And now I'm writing you a formal complaint. Now, of course, there could be so many more nefarious and, negative things that have gone on here. Like, exclusive brands could just be full of bad actors that are actually criminals out to, like, I don't know, steal your children and kill your dog. Although that sounds a little bit more like, I don't know, Customs and Border Patrol. But, it could be the case, but that's not what the formal complaint says. The formal complaint says that over and over again, their paperwork was wrong. And I wonder how Brandy feels about the kinds of formal complaints. Is this the transparency one expects from the agency providing enforcement? Do we want more? Do we want less? Like, I was reading through this complaint and I thought to myself, I do this all the time and I still think it's fucking confusing. What are you feeling about it?
I read the complaints and I thought I was confused too. I think that the whole process of, the whole metric and all of the rules and regulations and things are complicated, and they are difficult for businesses to comply with. So I'm not in the industry in that space, so I personally don't know what the level of requirements are and what that actually looks like in reality. But it looks pretty darn confusing. And in this particular complaint, I'm not really sure. And like you said, I don't know if these are bad guys or if they're just bad at paperwork. Because my first impulse was that they're being bad, at their paperwork process. But on the other hand, I've read some other complaints from other businesses, and it was very clear that they had garbage bags of stuff that came from the back door somebody dropped in. It's like, okay, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So here in this particular instance, to me, the violations seem to be paperwork. But again, I don't know. I'd like to know more. I'd like to know, are they pumping out poison and hiding something? Or is this just sheer, bad accounting and bad paperwork?
I'd like to know that too, because Exclusive makes some of the biggest multi-state operating brands in the state, right? And if they can't manage to do their paperwork right, how can we be certain that they're managing to keep their kitchen clean? And other things that might actually be public health concerns. Occasionally when I see formal complaints that have nothing to do with anything other than making sure a person walks the straight and narrow down a documentation path, nothing to do with keeping the public safe, right? Nothing that's openly discussed as keeping dollars out of, I don't know, criminal organizations, right? And those are the things that the bill for legalization was written to do, right? Creating an easy and equitable pathway to licensure for operators in the state, reducing potential diversion to underage users, making sure things are safe for consumption and aren't creating public health crises, right? And reducing the amount of money that goes towards organized crime, right? Like, these are the goals. They're still the goals today. They are still the intent of the bill. How does doing these things impact those goals? And if it's not, then is it really with the spirit of the bill for enforcement to be going this direction? And I'm not saying that there aren't other nefarious things. Like, maybe it was all like, and I don't think it's actually the case, but maybe it was like a lot of like crazy organized crime weed coming in the side door, and like magic is happening with the documents to try to like get it into the system. And I guess it could be possible. But then I ask you, like, weed is so cheap in Michigan. Who's gonna breed weed from anywhere else in the country to here to sell it to us? Like, I mean, we're talking like 25 cents a gram at this point. Like, I think it costs more in gas money to get it from any other place. Just gonna throw that out there. And I feel like that might mean there's been some success in Michigan, right? Making things so accessible that even organized crime is looking at us like, we cannot make money there. Let's go somewhere else. But that's just me, right? So, maybe I'm wrong. And, I know that there's a lot of other people who agree with me. I know that the Whitney Economics Report indicates that we have eradicated over 90% of the traditional market operators in the state of Michigan, right? Which, I might add, happened before all the crazy enforcement started happening all the time, okay? Like, that's huge. That means by having basically carte blanche, anybody who wants to have a license can have a license, even like $1,000, go forth and do great things. I realize that would be a really small license. You probably couldn't make money, but still you could have, right? Anybody. In some municipalities, really anybody. Okay? In other municipalities, like only one person at a time or whatever. But still, right? That we had done it so effectively that most people don't want to go anywhere else, and that people from other licensed legal states like Ohio and Illinois are still coming to Michigan to get access, and Pennsylvania. I mean, from all over. I heard people from Canada come here. I heard we have the best weed in the country, and people from California fly in on occasion, and from Vegas fly in on occasion, just so that they could get our weed to take it back to their licensed legal states to consume it, because the weed in their states, not so good, right? Like, that's what we've created here in Michigan. And maybe continued enforcement and scaring people and making it harder to do business will have the opposite effect, right? I feel like it'll have the opposite effect because I know that the drug war hasn't worked. And this feels more like that and less like, let's create opportunity and make sure everybody can fit in the tent with us. And if what we're trying to say is, oh, only some people get opportunity, we're taking steps backwards. And that by taking those steps backwards, we're going to be looking at more access to kids, more, involvement from organized crime. And we'll start looking at only the people who can afford the lawyers and the consultants and the specialists and the IT gurus that can figure out metric and all the other pain points that are inside that system. Only those people can afford to play. And then all of a sudden we're back to, okay, now everybody else just has to do it outside of the licensed legal market, right? And we're right back to where we started. So we could just get rid of scheduling altogether. But, I can kind of get on the bandwagon for getting rid of scheduling altogether, right? I mean, I've been working on that since like 1997. I never thought we would actually be talking about it in my lifetime. So I am glad for it. All right, so we have come upon the end of the time here. We're actually over time, a longer show than normal. This is amazing. Thank you, Brandy, for being here. Drake Detroit has said that his local dispo in Flint has every ounce in the store is $50 until September 15th. Okay, I just want to throw this out there. Okay, guys? A $50 ounce That's 50 cents a gram. Definitely, maybe cheaper than I could grow my own. Because energy isn't free, and plants take like 11 weeks to finish getting there. And I live in Lansing, and I have neighbors, so I can't grow outside, right? So there is no sunshine for me. Like, that's the kind of access for everyone that I've been advocating for a really long time. Thanks, Drake. Drake redid the math. I said 50 cents a gram. It's really $2 a gram. I just totally bluffed on that. That's freaking amazing, though. Okay? That, you know, if it should literally be the same price as a bottle of ibuprofen or cheaper. Or as a 6-pack or cheaper. And, you know, it just might be now. And that is the power of the law that we have written and enacted via petition to get through the legislature with minor changes here in Michigan. And Brandy, will you give some parting thoughts? Because that's what I'm parting with, is the process is working. Maybe we don't need to rock the boat so much.
Yeah, I think that we're really fortunate in Michigan, and we have a great law that we enjoy. But I also want to remind people that federal change needs to happen. And this is my final push to ask you to help us send some patients. We really need patients to go to the Hill. And the end of the month, September 26 and 27, is the Validated Voices Conference in DC. So really hoping to send some patients from Michigan so that they can meet with their Congress members and share their story. And Congress people can be reminded that medical cannabis patients are real people. They're, you know, your neighbor, your loved one, you know, your teacher, your lawyer, your bus driver, you know, that they're everywhere. But we can't leave them behind. And patient voices are important. So we need to bring them to DC. So help us bring the patients to DC. Cass might share the Validated Voices conference link. And if you're interested in going, please register. And if you're able to, even small dollar amounts, every dollar adds up. If you want to do a small dollar and then click on the little box that says in honor of someone, and you can put your patient's name or say Michigan, so we know that we're going to send some people from Michigan. And I thank you, Cass. This is a great service that you offer, and so much information. I've learned a bunch of stuff today, and I look forward to working with you more. Just thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Brandy. I really appreciate you taking time out on this Friday afternoon. Thank you, viewers. If you liked what you see, please throw me a follow. If you've already followed and you want to see different things, I am constantly accepting ask me anything questions. I am constantly looking for people to give that feedback and say, this is what I really want to see. I have gone to cultivation facilities. I've looked at pesticide testing. We're going to look at vape carts next week because people have been asking about that. We try, like, I try to cover whatever I'm being asked for. Last week, Lewis asked, hey, what are you doing about remediated products and how do you communicate that to your customers? We had 2 growers that were here, myself and Derek from Family Trees. We were able to talk about this is what we do and how we do it differently, right? We only know the kinds of questions that you guys want answered because you're actually telling us what those questions are. If you hit me up on LinkedIn, you can send those questions directly to me. You can send them to me at Twitch. You can send them to me on my YouTube channel. You can also go to my Patreon, which is patreon.com, National Cannabis News. There is also a survey for you to complete there that says, hey, these are the subjects that matter most to you. And it also includes a box of other things, right? So here's all the stuff that people have asked me to do. Here's the stuff I'm already doing. Here's the stuff I'm going to start doing soon because people have asked. Want me to start doing something else? Let's add it to it. The only thing I haven't had somebody ask me to do so far is go out and find people in the wild consuming cannabis. I feel like that might be a little bit of a stretch, but that's pretty much the only thing I haven't done yet. I have gone to cannabis events. I've gone out. We went to Torch Lake. We've gone to multiple cultivation facilities. We're here to support you. This education is for you. I'm here. I show up every week for you. thank you so much, Brandy, for joining me and being here for the audience. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to getting to do something with you very soon. All right. Goodbye, everyone. We'll be back next week. We will be live again from Moses Roses, powered by Calixium, in Detroit on Federal Street, Southwest Michigan. It'll be a good time, and I'm excited. Final thoughts coming out from Drake Detroit. Thank you for taking these risks. We need more good people for fighting for the rights of the people who can't fight for themselves. Brandy and I are going to keep fighting that good fight. We're going to keep showing up to Cannabis Weeks. We're going to go in May. We're going to go in September. We're going to keep having these conversations live. I know Brandy will keep doing it with me. We've been doing it together now for years. We're going to keep showing up for everybody else who doesn't think they have a voice. And remember, your voice matters. No one can hear you if you forget to speak. This is Cassin, signing off. Thanks, everybody.